Hello, everybody. Welcome into the Casual Sports Podcast. Once again, I'm Alec Caberna. That's Matt Morrison. In a midweek special edition, we got Mike on the show here. He's normally just on Mondays, Thursdays, Friday. He's back here on Wednesday instead.
Schedule got mixed up, so we're here.
Hey, so how do you feel? You got AJ Hawk and Clark Griswold.
And Clemente.
Oh, yeah, Roberto Clemente.
We got someone on. Yeah, we're all good here.
I'm good.
Well, we might have another rapid-fire edition of the Casual Sports Podcast. Matt and I just started going down the list real hot there at the end of yesterday's show. We actually went too fast on it a little bit there. But doesn't matter here. We're nearing in towards the end of the week. It's hump day, you know. We're getting there. Second half of the week's about to start. MLB stuff we'll talk about tomorrow once the wild card's finished.
Mike.
Guess what day it is?
Mike. Guess what day it is, Mike?
I already said Wednesday, Matt.
Say it again.
We already did it.
It's Wednesday, my dudes.
One's enough.
All right, so today on the show, we're heading down to the Green Bay versus Pittsburgh matchup. I guess we're heading up to that one. Colts versus Dolphins, Niners versus the Seahawks, the Jets, and the surprising win over the Titans, Washington football team in Heineke's Heineken moment versus Atlanta.
Awesome.
We're moving into a Big Ten segment of the show, talking Ohio State, Penn State, Iowa, and that team up north. We got Kentucky and Florida, the former Big Ten quarterback, balling out with Kentucky. Mississippi State proving A&M's not good at football, and Cincinnati and Notre Dame's big showdown as well as Arizona State's move into the top 25. Let's start things off with question of the day from yesterday.
Yep.
With which team did Bill Belichick begin his coaching career? Your options were the Browns, the Colts, the Giants, and the Broncos. The answer to that one, though, the Baltimore Colts was the answer to that one before.
Special assistant.
He moved on to the Giants, then the Browns. So
Defensive coordinator for the Giants that won the Super Bowl against the Bills. They shut down the no-huddle offense.
Well, then how about question of the day for today, Wednesday, October 6th. Army versus Navy is one of the most famous games on the annual college football schedule. Which school holds the all-time advantage in the Army-Navy football game? Leave your answer somewhere and come back tomorrow to see if you get it right. And stay tuned for the next question of the day on the Casual Sports Podcast. Boys, let's get into the Pittsburgh Steelers, or the Pittsburgh Losers as they're going to be called by the end of the season. 1-3 right now. And Big Ben doesn't look like he should be sticking around much longer. Probably his last season. I think if you all had a guess. Everything is going downhill right now. You can almost feel Pittsburgh is entering a rebuilding phase.
I think it should
with the way the rest of the AFC North is coming up.
Yeah.
I think it's a perfect time for the Steelers to go, all right, this is a super competitive division right now. Why don't we just sit
Take a
back?
few years off.
Why don't we sit back, rebuild, stay, around 500. There's no reason for them to go dropping down to, a 2-3 win team.
And they won't.
Bottom
Steelers
feeders.
don't do
The defense is too strong to do that, and I think it's a perfect chance though to get some higher draft picks. Top 15 picks for them. Pick up some nice players. Trade up into the first round. We don't see a lot of trading up for the Steelers in the draft. I think this is becoming a perfect scenario for them to do so with getting, I think, a lot of higher second, third, and fourth round picks. A chance to move up in there, get some big guys on offense, and perhaps there's one guy starting to fly under the radar in the NFL draft. They're starting to put out mock drafts, and it's the defensive tackle from Georgia. There's a behemoth on that line who, without a doubt, is the best defensive tackle in the country, and it's not even close. I mean, everyone wants the edge rushers, but, we know Pittsburgh's defensive line is built in that inside, and then they let Watt fly around on the outside, and, Hayward in there as well. If they can add that part to the defense, that defense looks even more insane. But they need offense.
Yeah. Hayward looks better as he gets older.
Well, Matt, I was talking to my buddy who's a Steeler fan. I was like, sorry about your 1-3 start. And he was like, I don't want to lose or anything, but he's like, it'll be good to have a higher draft pick this year because the Steelers normally don't have one.
Right, they're normally up in the 20s, 25, 30. You guys got Najee Harris with, 26th pick?
Yeah.
And, this is a perfect opportunity. Hey, get down to the 15, or if you're sitting right around 20 again, go load up a bunch of those draft picks, trade down into that top 10 if you can. Because maybe not this year. If you're looking for a quarterback, wait next year or 2 years down the line. I think still wait for quarterbacks. I don't think there's anybody out there in the draft this coming season that looks like the guy. And at the moment, I think you got to wait for guys like Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud, potentially DJ Uiagalelei, to come out of college, or Spencer Rattler. A lot of question marks there. I think he could have a bright future. You look at the last two Oklahoma NFL quarterbacks, and they've shined.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in depth here. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Big Ben.
It's your team, man.
I love Big Ben. Probably my favorite quarterback ever.
One of the best Steelers quarterbacks.
Absolutely. And I've liked him since I was a little boy. Okay, I remember my dad gave me a jersey when I was like 6, 7 years old. Okay, so a whole lot of respect for him, but his time is done.
Yeah,
I think it was
over.
last year too, honestly.
I know Mike Tom, like, this guy's Pittsburgh. I know that you got to make that hard decision. And
I think this is, as you're saying right there, I think it's putting Tomlin in the hardest position he's ever had to be in. Because this has been his guy his entire ride there.
Yeah. But I think it's time. I mean, all these sports broadcasters are going out right now and saying, "Oh, sign Cam Newton, sign him now." I'm like, no.
It's not too late to try to win this year.
First of all, I'm not signing Cam Newton at all. Ben is our guy, but he's had hip problems.
Well, and
his hips are
I think where you go with that is
he's 39 years old.
Not signing Cam Newton because Big Ben has he's earned that right to walk out in his final season, start that final year, and walk out, whether it's into the tunnel at the end of Week 17, into an AFC wildcard game if they can push it back at that point. Which, I mean, there's still plenty of time. This is only Week 4 in the NFL.
Alex, you remember a couple years ago they started 0-3 and they didn't make it, but they were close at the end.
Exactly. I mean, there's no.
This is
a longer season now, too.
Yeah.
So
this is a hard schedule. This is a very tough schedule. I don't know if it's the hardest, but it's up there.
I believe it's in the top 16 in the league. So
it's hard.
It's average.
Okay. So at least we're not losing to the Jets every week. Okay, we're losing to I mean, the Bengals are up and coming. Everybody's saying, "Oh, the Bengals suck. They're 3-1 right now."
Yeah, man. At the moment, it looked like it was going to be a bad loss in that one, but
I think just played the Packers.
It was a 10-point game as well, so it's not like it's being blown out. I mean, I think the defense is showing good things. The offense is showing good things. Improvements from Najee Harris in weeks here. Now, 15 carries, 62 yards, and a touchdown. You go, okay, now in these first 4 weeks, I'm seeing something there, right? But you still have to get out of the point of him being one of your leading wide receivers at that point. And something you and I have talked about outside of the show, drafting a wide receiver high. We have a lot of good guys coming out in this year and next year, coming from Ohio State, Alabama, Clemson, Oklahoma,
John Dawson,
Penn State. I mean, there are so many big names coming out here, and I think it's a very serious thing that Pittsburgh should really consider looking at Olave, because he's built just like Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
Those two are carbon copies of one another, and you'd be hard-pressed to say Olave isn't better than Terry McLaurin was at Ohio State, and we've seen the way McLaurin has torn it up on frankly, a poor team in Washington. I think he's led that wide receivers core into a new era, kind of like Jarvis Landry coming into the Browns and leading that squad, and complete turnaround there. You almost get that same feeling from a guy like McLaurin coming in there, kind of just giving this wide receivers core some life and taking away targets from all the safeties have to come cover him, double teaming him when he's going down the field, and it opens up the rest of the field. And Olave creates those same mismatches. He has so much speed and athleticism, some of the best hands in college football. I know he has had a down season this year, but he's working with a new quarterback. It's to be expected, and the quarterback that hasn't been on until this final game. So Olave, yes, has had a down year, but I think his past speaks volumes to what he's been able to do with an NFL starting quarterback in Justin Fields, who was just named the starter today for the Bears going forward. So we know Olave, working with an NFL quarterback, can hit 1,000 yards a season.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing as McLaurin did. So I think Steelers should look at a guy like McLaurin. If you want to go athleticism, you go Garrett Wilson. You want to go an all-around route runner, you go with Dotson as well. I mean, from Penn State. You look down at Alabama. They have a whole slew of guys that are always going to the NFL. So many high draft picks. But I mean, really, right now, where I'm saying Ohio State because they have the number one wide receivers core in the nation, based on the fact that they have 3 number one wide receiver recruits from the past 3 years.
Well, and like you're saying with the Steelers, they need somebody flashy, Matt, because their offense is boring.
There is.
They have a bunch of average receivers that are good.
Too. The quarterbacks next year's draft are not going to be good enough for us. Right now, if Ben goes down, I say no Rudolph, dear God. I
think you guys have tried the Rudolph experiment. That's why we're
too many times.
This is where I'm going to explain this too. Either go to Dobbs or Haskins. You know why? Because they're elusive and they're not pocket passers, and pocket passers are going to get killed with this offensive line. because it's not a good offensive line.
Matt, I don't want to sound like
That's
broken
why
record.
That's why Ben's getting hurt.
I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I said this when they drafted Najee Harris. It's a good draft pick. He's a good athlete, but the offensive line stinks.
It stinks. And this is where I think...
And they've utilized him the most in the passing game because of that.
And
because they've had him to go out on swing passes and stuff because they can't run block.
Yeah.
So I say build up that offensive line in the draft, get some young guys or sign some guys.
But you're probably not, if you get a top 15 pick, you're probably not taking an offensive lineman with that. That's when you go for the flashy player.
You gotta go for the receivers, but you gotta get the offensive line as well. And I say split the running back with Snell and Harris because Snell can take off too. He's got
a lot of speed.
He's got a lot of speed.
And obviously they liked him enough to keep him on the roster behind Harris instead of McFarland.
If Ben hopefully retires, you got free agency.
Yeah, I mean,
Taysom,
free agency I think is a great spot for them to build up that offensive line.
I mean, and look at like Denver, like they got a guy like Teddy Bridgewater, like a guy like that.
He's a free agent next year.
I mean, yeah, you can go grab a guy like that, or even Cam Newton just for another 1-year contract or something until you go to draft your quarterback.
I mean, even Taysom Hill is going to be a free agent, but I would
Let's not go there.
he would be the number one option.
He's not a quarterback.
He's not a quarterback, but.
Okay, well, let's flip over Green Bay real quick here before we move on. Aaron Rodgers, 20-36, 250 yards and 2 touchdowns. And, I mean, A.J. Dillon on the ground, leading running back, 81 yards. Aaron Jones, 48 yards. I mean, I think this was an all-around great performance for the Packers.
Yeah.
I mean, they split their wide receivers core so evenly between Jones, Adams, and Cobb. I mean, each guy was sitting around 60 yards receiving, and even Allen Lazard was their 4th highest guy with 33, and Cobb getting both of the touchdowns through the air from Aaron Rodgers. I think you just look at this game to go, they went up against a top-tier defense in the NFL, the Steelers. They put up 27 points, and it was, frankly, a great day to be a Green Bay Packers fan. And, I mean, you've seen that last 3 games, 3 wins in a row after that Week 1 collapse against the Saints. And, I mean, I think that's where you look at, this isn't the same team we saw Week 1. It's not even the same team we saw Week 2. This is a whole new monster from Aaron Rodgers. And, we were all making fun of The Last Dance after that first game, and him and his wide receivers put up on their Instagrams, like, Last Dance here in Green Bay. And now these next 3 games after that first collapse, it has been fantastic and perfect.
But you know what, Alec? I mean, you talk about their defense was terrible in that first game, but it's tightened up since then.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we talk about their offense, it's starting to look like it's clicking. Their defense is starting to get things together.
They still held a Hall of Fame level quarterback in Big Ben to 26 of 40, 232 yards, 1 touchdown, and 1 interception, and just 17 points in offense in total. And you limited them as well to just 62 rushing yards in that game. I think that's where you look at this for the Packers and go, all right, this wasn't a team we looked at first as an actual contender in the NFC.
But
they've turned it around these last 3 games. If they continue to turn it around, this will be a very serious contender.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
How about 2 not-so-serious contenders, 1-3, 1-3. Colts picked up their first win in the game against their former quarterback of Jacoby Brissett, 20 of 30 for him, 199 yards and 2 touchdowns against his former squad. But Carson Wentz coming out, 24 of 32, 228 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor on the ground for the Colts finally showed what everybody was looking for from last season. Averaged 6.4 yards per carry, a touchdown, and 103 yards on 16 carries in that last game. They're still waiting for the wide receiver core in the squad, though, to get better.
Yeah.
They're okay. They have some guys that look good. I mean, Paris Campbell is a speedy guy who's got fancy footwork. They need more out of him, I think, and he's going to find that eventually here in the NFL. Young wide receivers, it takes a while to find your footing and actually become a threat in the NFL. Mo Alley-Cox, Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman Jr. are 3 guys that, are the leaders of the wide receiver core, and obviously Alley-Cox with 2 touchdowns on 3 receptions. They need more, though, in the future if they want to actually be serious about winning football games.
I mean, my biggest takeaway from this game is Carson Wentz had a good game.
Yeah.
It was pretty solid.
That's the takeaway, and the other takeaway is Jonathan Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, their running game overall was pretty solid, so that was good to see for them, because we've been talking about that on the show about the Colts.
Right.
Yes, we have. And, I mean, like you said, they're still trying to figure out their receiving core. While they're figuring that out, just pound that running game as much as they can.
Get Jonathan Taylor a rhythm.
Because it's working.
Right.
It's working.
And they found Jonathan Taylor a rhythm, and they won the football game.
Yep.
And I think on the other side of this, for the Dolphins, you're really just waiting for Tua at this point to come on back, and you're still working him through the system. He came in last year when they were on the up and up, replaced, Fitzpatrick in that offense, let Tua take the reins, and he was perfect in those. As perfect as you expect a rookie to be in those last few games. when they were in the second half of the season when they brought him in. And he couldn't get into that rhythm to start the season with the injuries, but he looked okay to start the year.
It wasn't bad.
Right. And, I think now you look at Miami to come back out here with Tua at the helm, and you expect a turnaround here. Obviously, there's still a lot of things to figure out for Miami Dolphins. I think everyone was hyped up after that last season. I didn't think they were going to be that good last year. They were. I don't think they're going to be that good this year, and they're not so far. So I think there's still a lot to figure out in Miami going forward.
Yeah, I mean, people were excited about the receiving core. They had a good draft with the receivers and Tua, but
with Waddle and
unfortunate injuries.
Right. I mean, injuries have plagued them, and it's kind of why you have to say they're kind of waiting.
Yeah.
So, next game up here, two teams still, I think finding themselves as well.
Absolutely.
Seahawks, 49ers. Seahawks came out on top 28-21. Wilson went 16-23, 149 yards, 2 touchdowns for him. Alex Collins on the ground led their rushing attack with 44 yards and a touchdown. DK Metcalf leading wide receiver with 65 yards. On the other side of this, Jimmy G, 14-23, 165 yards, a touchdown and interception. Got injured. Here comes the rookie, Trey Lance, 9-18, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns.
And this is another guy that Pittsburgh needs to look at, too, maybe trading for.
Jimmy G?
Garoppolo.
I mean, it'd be a nice fit for them.
It would be. And Trey Lance is,
whenever he's
He
ready.
did lead the team to the Super Bowl.
He did.
I mean, that was his stack team he had, but, he was still the guy at the
He's
helm.
still a leader.
Right.
Quarterback's always a leader. We talked about that. You know that some players take control. You always look at that quarterback.
At the end of the day, it doesn't matter how great a wide receiver is or how
Who's
great
getting
a
the
running
ball?
back
Who's
is.
getting the ball to those guys?
Right. So, you have to look at that. I mean, I think Trey Lance, the takeaway here from even the loss, 157 yards and 2 touchdowns for him on 50% completion. Coming in here, not expecting to start, not expecting to get the starting reps and actually playing this game. I think you come off the bench, you look at that and you go, all right, that works.
Yeah, it's good enough.
Also, 41 rushing yards for him, and we're going to have a Trey backfield here, and dinner served for Sermon as he had 89 yards in that game on 19 carries, 4.7 yards per carry. This is what 49ers were expecting when they took Sermon in the draft. I mean, that's what they wanted from him, and you see him find that form. Obviously, a guy played a long time in college football. You expect him to come in right away and make an impact, and he has.
I mean, yeah.
Look at this, though.
Debo Samuel, 8 receptions,
Samuel.
156 yards, 2 touchdowns.
That big reception, I did turn on the Jets. I mean,
Debo Samuel
why they
is
like him.
turning into an insane athlete. And that's another...
The speed's quick.
That's another dynamic duo probably we're talking about.
Yeah.
Lance and Debo.
Potentially.
Debo. Who wants some more? Who wants some more Debo? You gotta remember that movie, right?
Yeah. Well, speaking of turning on the Jets, they picked up their first win in overtime this week against the now 2-2 Titans, despite another 157-yard performance from Derrick Henry, a touchdown for him, 33 carries. Game plan is simple right now for the Titans. Run the ball. Run the ball. I mean, Tannehill still threw it 49 times, so they had a ton of offense in this game. 298 yards on 30 catches for Ryan Tannehill with a touchdown. McNichols led the wide receiver score, 74 yards for him. On the other side of this, Zach Wilson, I think, has had his best game so far, 21-34, 297 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. You take the interception because you win the football game. You know what? I think you look at it, end of the day, as long as you win the football game, I don't care if you throw no picks or you throw 5 picks. If you give me enough offense to win the football game, you win. You're my starter going forward.
I mean, you look at Zach Wilson. I mean, he has some deep balls. That's what Jets fans wanted when they drafted him. So they were picturing. He had a couple nice deep balls, so it was nice to see that.
And, they didn't have a rushing game in that, and that is a big part of it. I mean, when you're rushing it 13 times, you're only getting 2.9 yards per carry. That's not going to get it done here. They had to rely on Zach Wilson. I think he showed in that fourth quarter, I'm a guy you can rely on going forward.
Absolutely.
My one other takeaway from this game, so I told you guys I was making some bets over the weekend. I had a 16 parlay with a bunch of teams. I had Dallas and a bunch of other teams. Every team won except the Titans, so I wasn't expecting that. So it was kind of...
So close.
I know.
So...
It's what we live and learn.
We'll talk about being close. Washington football team taking a 4-point win against the Atlanta Falcons. Heineke put up his Heineken performance of the season, 23-33, 290 yards and 3 touchdowns for him. They didn't get much on the ground. Gibson only 14 carries for 63 yards and 4.5 yards per carry with a touchdown. And Terry McLaurin, 123 yards through the air in receiving yards with 2 touchdowns as well. McKissick with the other touchdown through the air. And this was a great performance from this Washington offense. And I think something we haven't seen from them so far was that offense getting that rhythm and looking like they did last season when they went to the playoffs. I mean, yes, they did it against the Falcons, and their defense looked poor. 4 touchdowns and 283 yards from Matt Ryan.
Yeah.
But, Falcons, on the other hand, didn't have a running game as well. And I think there's a lot to figure, just as we said before with some of these teams, a lot to figure out going forward. But we're at the, week 5 coming up here on Thursday Night Football tomorrow, which we'll preview tomorrow, obviously. But a lot to figure out for all these teams going into week 5. And I think this is the tip of the iceberg right now. Washington's offense looks good,
yes,
but now the defense looks bad, which is the complete opposite of last year.
How about this Falcons offense? They're relying on Cordell Patterson, which, I mean, the guy can play, but you can't rely on him the whole time. They hyped up Mike Davis during that whole preseason. Like, the guy's ripped. The guy had 13 carries and 14 yards. That's like 1 yard per carry.
I mean, yeah, guys. They scored 30 points. They scored a point in every quarter. They scored something in every quarter. So that's something to be positive about for the Falcons.
It is, but I don't know.
That's all I got on that.
That's all I got. I can't talk about
Well, let's move out of the NFL here.
Yeah.
Head into some college football talk. Before we go into talking Big Ten individually here, let's talk some of the individuals in the Big Ten. I think this was a big game coming into the weekend with people looking at it. Ohio State versus Rutgers, right? You get Rutgers going 2013 against Michigan, nearly pulling off the win there. I think there were a lot of heads being turned going into this football game about, Rutgers has their chance this year. This is the best they've ever looked. They can make a splash here in the Big Ten. They almost beat Michigan, who was looking, frankly, like the best team in the Big Ten until this past weekend. I mean, you could say that Michigan was looking the best, right?
Let me explain.
With the way that they had performed so far, and they came in there against Rutgers, and they kind of fell flat, and that kind of made people think Rutgers might be better than they were. Ohio State then came in here and proved, okay, Ohio State's back. C.J. Stroud's arm is perfectly healthy now, and I think you look at where those first few games compared to now, C.J. Stroud was not healthy. If that's what they're, they held him out of that Akron game because of an injury. And he comes back and just went perfect in this game, basically.
It was insane.
Yeah, he was insane. I mean, 17 of 23, 330 yards and 5 touchdowns. Perfect stat line for him. And I think that's the big takeaway is Stroud being healthy, I'm perfectly fine with this. Matt and I talked about Stroud earlier
He has found
this
his
week,
sink.
and you were even, this was just yesterday in the show, you and I were talking about Stroud is the guy for this team, and we have no problem backing him for the rest of this year.
Let me explain something to you, Alec. One day you're going to understand this.
Oh boy.
I understand Rutgers challenge. Matt, be quiet. I understand Rutgers challenge Michigan, but I never thought for 1 second. I know Rutgers is playing better, but I never thought for 1 second this was going to be a close game.
Oh no,
I didn't say that.
Well, some Ohio State fans are like, "Oh, this might be a measuring stick because Rutgers is playing good." No, this is Ohio State. Every time you think it's going to be a challenge, they blow somebody out. One day Ohio State, I'm not saying you, but one day some Ohio State...
No, I believe you did point me out at first, so now he's going back on his word here.
Well, I'm not saying this game...
yeah.
I'm not saying you said, this game. There's been games in the past where you said, this could be a struggle. It's Ohio State. I don't fall for this anymore with them. No. They always find a way, and they always come out and blow teams out like this.
Like us.
That's the other thing, too. There's Ohio State fans I know, it's going to be a struggle against Penn State this year. No, they're probably going to beat Penn State. I'm a fan. I know they're probably going to beat them.
I am not saying that,
Mike. You heard Mike here first go cold on his own team weeks before it even happens.
It's the same old thing.
I'm sick of it. This is a year.
I'm sick of it too, Matt, but I know this. I'm not going to fall.
We're going to take it this year. Those 5 touchdowns will be 5.
Until it actually happens, I'm not going to talk about it.
All right. But no, I mean, I think this was a great
Oh, it was.
performance for Ohio
Look
State.
at the numbers from them.
Everything was perfect in this game. I mean, between bringing in our 4th string running back, and he still had 58 yards. 3rd string running back in Travion Henderson, who's worked his way up the depth chart rather quickly. He's not 3rd string anymore. He's first string at this point. Master Teague was the starter to start the season. He's now our 3rd string back with Crowley's the 4th string guy. Our 2nd string guy was out this week. Who name is out of my head right now, but doesn't matter. I mean, you look Travion Henderson. It's hard to say right now as a true freshman he's not the best running back in college football.
Yeah.
When you look at yards per carries, because there's the big argument with the Texas running back. Oh, well, he's got the numbers beyond Robinson or Williams.
Yeah.
Huh? Oh, Mayan Williams.
Mayan
The other running back. He's running back 2 for Ohio State. But Travion Henderson, the fact that he's had just 3 starts and his numbers are up there with the rest of the country, you could say right now, if he had been the starting guy and was getting the starting reps from the very beginning, that Minnesota game's not close. That Oregon game's not close. I mean, those are games that if Henderson was that guy to start out with and he was having the big games, Ohio State's 5-0 right now and the number 1 team in the country.
I think that if they played Oregon again, they'd beat them.
It's hard to say that they wouldn't. With the way Stroud looks, the way Henderson looks,
he needed
the
to
way
find
this
his
team is
sink.
completely different. This is
But
a completely different
He
team than it was
needed to
week 1
find
or
his
week
sink,
2.
and he is
That
found
loss,
it.
that one
Took him a
loss though
couple
makes it
games.
look worse now because Oregon lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it makes it look a little worse for Ohio State. Let's see if they can overcome that because they lost to Stanford.
I mean, they have some big games coming up. So
Ohio State, if they win out and win the Big Ten championship, they will be in the college football playoff, and I don't think that's any doubt.
Big
because
Ten
of,
is one of the hardest.
I think
conferences
they're definitely
there.
proving that again this year. Because I know, Matt, we had talked about this at the beginning of the season, who's the best conference in football, and the SEC was a pretty unanimous vote across the board of how strong
Big
they
Ten
looked.
is
But
strong.
But
we
Big Ten's
were-
close
'cause-
second.
Yeah, I
Big
mean,
Ten is there.
as I was saying here,
I'm sorry.
the Big Ten after last season didn't look like that. All the things talking is like, Big Ten after last year, they need the season to look good, and then we'll talk about them coming back. They've shown that they've looked good this season. They are right back to where they were pre-COVID. So I think Big Ten re-enters that conversation for best conference in football probably next year. I think the SEC just looks fantastic across the board this year. I mean, you look at that top for them, and it's just phenomenal. But you look at Ohio State's top, 5 of the top 11 is the Big Ten.
I mean, I don't know why it sometimes Big Ten goes away. I mean, Ohio State's always in the big top 10, top 5.
Because they beat each other up, and then they get penalized.
Penn State's always ranked. Michigan's almost near the bottom, but they're normally
Since
ranked.
Harbaugh,
Michigan
they've been
State's
almost always
last couple
ranked.
years they fell off, but they're normally ranked at the bottom. I mean, Iowa's normally ranked. I mean, it's there for them. I don't know why it's ever gone out of the question that they're it's lacked in some years.
I mean, it's really the Big Ten East that we talk about, though, because that Big Ten West, I think we enter a conversation here in the Big Ten
It's Iowa.
conference realignment.
Yeah.
I think perhaps once they reach a new college football playoff format, I think it's the perfect time for the Big Ten to flip around the conferences as well, shake some things up, because you can keep the rivalries intact. There's no problems with that.
Yeah.
In doing that, scheduling is going to work about the exact same, but I think you need to make some adjustments so that you're getting a team like Ohio State versus Michigan in the Big Ten championship, or Ohio State Penn State in the Big Ten championship. Make those big games that are normally happening, in October or September, be the game you're talking about come November, December.
Yeah. I mean, it's just something that
Something
it's
to
probably
talk
been
about.
kicked around, I'm sure. So we'll see if that happens
We'll
with, like you
see.
said, the playoff
Right.
expansion.
Yeah.
And I mean, Penn State, they're looking like a fantastic team right now defensively. The offense,
Defensively.
I think, found a rhythm this
They
week against
did.
Indiana, but it's not as strong Indiana.
It's not elite.
I mean, it was a good performance for them, I think, all around the board. But I think Penn State fans, I'm guessing you guys included,
Yes.
you like the shutout, but you want more offense.
Well, I want more offense, but I wasn't expecting like a huge
Ohio
blowout.
State would have beat Indiana 56-0.
Probably 56-7. Indiana always scores against us.
Oh, shoot.
I mean, I wasn't expecting a huge blowout in this game.
Look
I
what
mean,
they did to Rutgers.
Indiana's like not what they were last year, but it's.
Yeah.
I mean, it's you don't blow teams out that much unless you're Alabama or some other teams in and conference play like
Georgia.
Georgia and Alabama.
That Georgia defense,
Listen,
man.
I don't want to be in the playoffs.
Right? Like, I'm Ohio State, and like, we're all talking playoffs here, and I'm like, Ohio State got embarrassed by
I'd
Clemson in
just
the
be
playoffs,
happy,
got embarrassed by Alabama in the playoffs.
Yeah, I was about to say, just give me a New Year's Six goal. We'll play Ole Miss.
Iowa can take it this year. They got a good defense.
Don't get me wrong, I want to be in it,
We'll play Ole Miss or Coastal Carolina. I don't care.
but don't get me wrong, I want to be in it, but like
How about
this year,
this?
I'm fine with not being in it.
Yeah.
How about this New Year's Six
Well,
game, though? What about
But this might be
Ohio
a
State, Cincinnati? In a New Year's Six day, a
Make that
Rose
happen.
Bowl, Cotton Bowl, something? I mean, tell me that wouldn't be a matchup.
That'd be a matchup.
Fickle versus the Buckeyes, his former squad that he's with for, a decade with Jim Tressel and Urban Meyer. He was
Wow,
the interim
team.
head coach for,
Yeah.
the one season. He even stayed there after the interim stand and then went down to Cincinnati. He's now stealing all the recruits out of the greater Cincinnati area and the surrounding towns. I mean, it's going to become, potentially, with Cincinnati's move to the Big 12, one of the next biggest in-state rivalries.
Oh yeah, I mean, like you said,
if they were to face at a point like that.
Yeah, I mean, taking the recruits. I mean, you're getting a rivalry right there.
It's setting everything up to become the next big rivalry, and I think it's something Ohio State has always needed. Right? There's no in-state opponent that has ever challenged them. I believe they have one loss to an in-state opponent, and it was the very first game against, I believe, Ohio Wesleyan. Back in 1892 or something, and they lost like 56 or something to nothing.
Every team needs to have an in-state because, like you said, Ohio State really doesn't.
Right. I mean Penn State Pitt. Even though
it
hasn't been a
massive
matchup in recent years, and they haven't played a lot.
They haven't played.
Right.
They took it off, which I think they need to go back to that.
But you go in there, Auburn, Alabama. It's just across state lines, but Georgia, Florida, right there next to each other. Obviously, Ohio State has Michigan, but at the same time, there's never been that in-state team that has challenged a team like Ohio State.
You can even go our schools. I think YSU should play Kent or Akron.
Well, we had Akron on the schedule last year, but it got canceled from COVID. Because that used to be a massive rivalry. Yeah. It was a Battle of the Steel Tire.
That would have been cool. You can even go high school football. How about Brookfield?
It's the Battle of 76 as well.
Yeah. How you can even go high school football?
Drawing Liberty.
How about Hubbard versus Brookfield? They're right down the street. I think Hubbard would kill them. But I hate to say that, but...
Yeah,
Hubbard's pretty good at it.
Well, how about let's speak here.
Go ahead.
Maryland Terrapins were 4-0. I said they hadn't been 5-0 in 20 years. Still not. What's up with Maryland? They always lose the 5th game. It's always the 5th game. I feel like they're always 4-0. Everyone's like, right there on the cusp of top 25. And then they get blown out in week 5 every single time. And I mean, Iowa finally showed that offense. I think they've been missing so far this season. 51 points in this. 3 touchdowns from Spencer Petras, 21 of 30. And this was their perfect game to go into Penn State next week, into that matchup next week against Penn State. It's getting hosted in Iowa. And I think you look at that Iowa offense, mix it with that Iowa defense, and not only is this becoming the biggest matchup of the weekend, perhaps the biggest matchup of the season for the Big Ten, at least. Unless if Penn State wins this, then it will be Penn State versus Ohio State as the biggest game of the season. But this one right here, I think, sets the tempo of the Big Ten this season. And if it's the Big Ten West time to shine, I mean, if Iowa comes in here, hosts Penn State, and slaps them around, it's hard-pressed to say that, come Big Ten championship time, Iowa won't be the favorite to win it against Michigan, Michigan State, Ohio State, Penn State, whoever they were end up facing at that point, or Michigan State either, in that championship game. And if Iowa was to win out, go undefeated this season, then I think the best chance for them, obviously, is going undefeated and then getting in. If they are a one-loss team, though, I think they need to beat Ohio State in the Big Ten championship.
They do.
Because of the name, right? It's the college football contender. I think a Michigan win, it looks okay, so does Michigan State. 2 wins over Penn State I don't think looks nearly as impressive because of that. But Iowa right now, I think they need that big name win over Ohio State, who's been in the playoff time and time again. 4 time in a row, Big Ten champions. I just think that's what Iowa needs, right? To make that next step as the program, to show the committee that this isn't the Iowa of old that's just pro-style football and doesn't really do much. They got 51 points in this game against Maryland, right? They need that going forward consistently.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about a big win over Ohio State. I mean, that's what Penn State got a couple years ago. That's why Penn State's in the position they're in right now, because they got a win like that when they were 4-2.
Right. No, they picked up the win over Ohio State, and you've seen it ever since then. That program is something different.
Yeah.
And that's why Michigan's always down, right? They can't beat Ohio State. They can't get over that hump ever.
And in
the last decade.
Talk about Iowa from a Penn State perspective. Because we talked about earlier in the year, they have to win at least one game against Iowa and Ohio State. This would be the game I pick for them to lose, because if they lose this, I know it's conference, it's going to hurt them, but you still have a chance to get in the Big Ten championship game if you beat Ohio State. So if I had to pick, this would be the game that I'd want them to lose. I don't want to say want them to lose, but
they can lose, but
you
have to beat Ohio State.
Can we talk about, though, Penn State, perhaps the 3 hardest road games of the year, in Iowa,
it's brutal,
in Columbus, and then up in East Lansing.
And they open up in Wisconsin, even though they're not what they were.
Yeah, even Wisconsin's a 1-3 team. Yeah, you go into that and go, Wisconsin, energy at the beginning of the season.
They got the jump around crowd, man. That crowd is nuts.
I mean, at the time, nobody picked to win that game. Nobody did.
No.
No, I think that set the energy for Penn State in the season. I mean, they go in there hosting Auburn and that good matchup in what was that, week 3, and they win it. And it was a close game, but at the same time, it was Penn State's wide out. The energy was there, and I think Auburn fed off the energy even more than Penn State did because they're used to playing in those big games down in the SEC and in their own Iron Bowl. I think they're used to those big energy crowds, and I don't think it affected them nearly as much as it affects some other teams.
I mean, I know we're gonna make predictions later in the week on that game, but
I'm still thinking.
My thing is they're battle tested, Penn State.
They are.
I mean, you got a big win. It was ugly, but you got a big opening.
They can take the hits.
You got that. You beat a good. I mean, Auburn's okay. I mean, they had a good game this past week, so they're better than I guess what we said they were last week. But
I don't know. They're still on the edge for me.
But they had a big game.
They're there.
I'll take that. But
they're farther away from the edge than they were, though.
Yeah.
They're still on the edge.
They're still okay.
Yeah, I mean, they look like an okay team. I think it's when Penn State, you look back on, you're like, man, I want more than 28-20. Same thing with Wisconsin. You're like, man, you see Wisconsin just got blown out 38-17 by Michigan, and a Michigan offense that only had a pass at 28 times, and I mean, they just spread the ball out with less than, right around 100 yards on the ground rushing, and they stay able to score 38 points because Michigan's got a good defense on their end, too, which they always seem to have. And the offense, I think, is still finding a rhythm here, and they're going to need an offense going up against Ohio State and Penn State and teams like that in this season. But I think you look right now for Penn State and you're like, man, I wish we had a little bit more in those games. That way, when you go look at matchup comparisons, which tends to happen once you get towards college football playoff and the standings and brackets, you look at the head-to-heads outside of some of these games, and like, who have you beat, right? And it's how have you beat them as well.
Well, I agree with you as a fan, looking at these games, hey, I want to score more.
Right.
But 16-10, like I said at the time, that's fine because it's on the road.
Season starter, too.
It's season starter. They had a new offensive coordinator who still was figuring things out. And you keep it close in that game. It's an ugly game. And even with the Indiana game, they still shut them out. I wanted more on offense. They had more chances to score, but it's a win, Matt.
It's a win.
Say all the time, it's a win.
It's a win. It counts. It goes down in the books.
At the end of the day, it's the same thing with
you always want more.
Ohio State versus Tulsa. I would have loved a lot more. At the end of the day, they still won by 20.
You always want more.
Still won the game.
You can't blow everybody out.
Right. I mean, you're going to get close matchups in college football. That's what happens. You're going to get upset. I mean, this is college football on any given Saturday, right? I mean, that's the saying.
Any given Saturday.
Anything can happen in college football because it's chaotic. It's designed to be chaotic, right? I mean, you have a bunch of college athletes. You don't know somebody comes into this game hungover or, studying for a final the next, week or something. There are so many other factors in college football. Then you get the massive environments full of drunks in the crowd and all of, the excitement in college students and all this atmosphere. You get all the build up. And at the end of the day, these are kids, right? You crack under pressure. I mean, that's saying Matt and I, when we call games, sometimes it feels like there's a lot of pressure on us to deliver a broadcast. Sometimes we're great, sometimes we're not, At the same time, we're college students, these are college students, we're the same age as these kids.
Same age.
And they're out there performing on a national level. We're here broadcasting high school football games and, a daily podcast. At the same time, though, it's like we understand the pressure to a degree, right? You see it and you go, these are college kids, right? I mean, not everything's going perfect to plan. I mean, this isn't the NFL. No one's getting paid millions of dollars to throw their body on the line.
You're planning to get to that level.
Right. You're planning to get there. At the same time, you're not always trying to put your body on the line and end up in a stretcher or in a home for the rest of your life.
Yeah. This team.
Okay, let's move out of the Big Ten
Yes.
here. We've talked a bit of them. Let's get into some SEC matchups here for a moment. Kentucky, now 5-0. Got to win over the Florida Gators 20-13. And I think you look at this and go,
this game.
Alabama beat Florida 31-29. Now Kentucky shows a better defense, offense a little less, but they win by more. And Will Levis didn't have to do much. I mean, he had a pretty poor performance.
But he's awesome.
Which I think Penn State fans are used to.
He's awesome, Adam. He's good.
He's a momentum getter. He gets his teammates pumped up and stuff. I've seen the...
Yeah, the interception really got them pumped up. 7-17 for Will Levis, 87 yards and a touchdown, 1 interception. I mean, this was the defense who took control of this game and made sure they won it. I mean, even on the ground, 99 yards for Chris Rodriguez with a touchdown, 5.2 yards per carry. That's a good performance. And then Wan'Dale Robinson, 65 yards and a touchdown for their squad. And it's Kentucky that needs to prove a lot more. They have a lot to prove, right? I mean, they haven't been much, and we're going to talk about their game tomorrow against LSU upcoming. But, I mean, they have a better schedule than I think a lot of the SEC. They have Georgia in 2 weeks in Georgia, and that's that is their hardest game to look ahead at.
They just beat a team that lost to Alabama by a field goal, winning field goal, last second to win it. And they beat them by a touchdown. No, sort of. But
It was 7 points.
Yeah, but you gotta say they got a chance. Georgia's as dominant as Alabama, I think.
I think they're more dominant this season. If you look at that defense, this is being touted as the best defense in the SEC or in college football since 2011. Alabama.
There's a chance. There's a chance.
There's a chance Kentucky might get a touchdown in that game.
Maybe.
I mean, just like Arkansas.
You got that nose tackle coming up the middle like you were talking about. That.
Yeah. He's a monster.
Yeah. So
beast, and his name's escaping my brain, but Levis is going to need a fantastic game. That's all we're saying.
He's got to keep that Kentucky moon shining. That's what you got to keep doing. The blue moon of Kentucky. You got to keep it shining.
Who was the last guy to make that moon shine? Benny Snell.
Benny Snell.
He did a lot.
We're not referring to alcohol here. We're talking about the moon. Okay.
Okay, Matt.
We are.
Everyone believes you.
It's true. That's actually a song.
We know.
All right, more SEC games. A big upset for Mississippi State. In the books, it looks like an upset. I think based on what we've been saying, it's not really one. 26-22 for the Bulldogs over the Aggies. Will Rodgers, their quarterback, 46 of 59, 408 yards with 3 tutties. No ground game for them. A&M had to rely on the ground game. 100 yards for Isaiah Spiller. Zach Calzada through the air, 12 of 20, 135 yards, 1 TD, 1 interception. And I think this just proves what we've been saying about A&M all along. They weren't really a top 25 team. They never really showed anything to be one.
No.
They had the high-ranking preseason, and I think that's all they had, right?
Yep.
I mean, they came out with a win against Kent State. Who cares? Everyone beats Kent. Then they pulled off the tiny win against Colorado, who is not an impressive win in any stretch of the imagination. They go up against New Mexico, blow them out. It was nothing. Then you get in their first real matchup, right? Against Arkansas, who just got shut out by Georgia and murdered. Destroyed, decimated.
Not just shut out or decimated.
They were roadkill.
It was sad.
That Razorback was, limping out of that off the road.
And they're fortunate
they
to only
put it on
fall
a
5
spit
spots.
and cooked it. That's what they did.
I think Arkansas only fell because of how strong they looked on the rest of the season. But yeah, I mean, with that win over A&M, 20-10, you looked back-to-back losses now for A&M as well after the 3-0 start against 3 poor opponents. And this has just proved that we've been saying all along about this Aggie squad. So
we were saying the same thing last year too.
Right.
So.
And the year before that.
Exactly. And this, I think, was the biggest game in college football.
Sure was.
If not just this past weekend, I think perhaps the whole season. I think for Cincinnati, it was the biggest game in school history. And this might go down potentially as the most important game of the 20s for college football, right? You look at Cincinnati, a group of 5 team, going up against the ultimate powerhouse, the ultimate, powerhouse of college football, the ultimate icon. I mean, this is Notre Dame football.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, they're not what they used to be, but they still have their winningest head coach of all time at the helm. This is a guy that has produced lots of NFL talent at tight end. He sent a few quarterbacks, none have really been great, but defensive guys have been fantastic off this team. This is a Notre Dame team that is up there in the conversation every single year, whether they should be or not. But this is one of Notre Dame's hardest schedules, and they went up against Cincinnati. And Cincinnati had the extra week to prepare, and Cincinnati came in and won this game. The Fighting Pickles, they looked fantastic. 19-32 for Ritter, 297 yards and 2 touchdowns for him. And as I'm saying, this is the biggest game in Cincinnati's history. It might end up going down as the biggest game of the college football season and decade. Now that we're here in 2021, 2020 was a down year, I think, for college football. Cincinnati's win here, I think, shows something else to college football fans around the country and non-college football fans. We're in a day and era where you don't have to be Alabama, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Clemson, a blue blood of the sport to be that team, right? Cincinnati is a group of 5 school. Just upset one of the biggest programs in college history. Whether it's football, baseball, hockey, soccer, whatever it is, Notre Dame has been the standard for 100 years. They might not be that anymore.
Their coach just won his, 100th win? Or not 100th
No, he's
win.
way over that.
He's way over that. He tied. He has a record.
Yeah,
he has a record. Okay, but just saying also with that.
Yeah.
And they came in and defeated a team like this.
And I think this goes along with what everyone's been saying. Luke Fickell is obviously the #1 head coaching candidate for any team that looking to hire somebody.
Yeah.
I think after
Hey,
this, it
Sam.
just proves one thing. Luke Fickell ain't going nowhere. He has built this program from the ground up, has built a winning mentality, is building up Cincinnati, building up recruiting. It has now is moving into the Big 12 the next decade. And is looking like if they can stay this well and get another quarterback like Ritter to lead this squad offensively, this will be a contender in the Big 12. I mean, there's not going to be a lot of teams out there in the Big 12 that are going to be the competitors. And I think you look at who the Big 12 is bringing in with Cincinnati and BYU, both teams sitting in the top 10.
Yeah. And I even talked about Cincinnati last week. They scheduled teams like Indiana, and even though they aren't what they were last year, but Indiana and Notre Dame, and they won both of them. They wanted both. They wanted those challenges. Say, hey, we got these big wins. We deserve to be in the conversation.
I always go back to that bowl game last year. They almost beat Georgia in their bowl game.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Cincinnati right now. So long as they win out, right? I mean, I think with their wins on the season, they prove so long as they win out, this is the number 4 team in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
I think that spot is theirs. So this is a control your destiny moment, right? So as long as you can win out, you take this down the line. SMU is the one matchup you look at. November 20th, that SMU game, they'll probably meet up twice. In this game here, just before the final week, and then in the championship game. These are the two best teams in the AAC right now. The American Conference has been a powerhouse recently, and Cincinnati has the chance now to run the tables. They have Temple this week, which we'll talk about tomorrow. UCF, which isn't what they used to be, but Navy, Tulane, Tulsa, South Florida, East Carolina, and then that SMU game. Cincinnati, if they win out, they will get another top 25 win potentially over SMU.
Yeah.
Or 2 over them.
Pony Express.
Right. So we're not talking about a Cincinnati team that has some massive wins under their belt between Indiana and Notre Dame in back-to-back matchups for them. I mean, I think that's where you look at.
That's key.
Cincinnati has proved this season, last season, season before, we're here, give us our damn respect.
Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the SMU game being a challenge. Tulsa might challenge them a little bit.
With what we saw from
against
Tulsa
Ohio
against
State.
Ohio State, yeah, I mean, a strong defense there and a pretty strong offense. I mean, they put up 24 against that Buckeye defense, while that defense wasn't what they are, I think, now. They've made a lot of adjustments there after that Tulsa game. I think there was a lot of, all right, we need to turn this, around and
They did.
change some things up, and they did. And I think this is a lot better defense than we saw. They're running zone defenses now, and that really changes up how you work with the spread offenses that they've been going up against. You saw against Rutgers. That Rutgers team couldn't move against a mixture of man and zone. The defense is showing different things for Ohio State, changing it up. But back to that Tulsa team, the Tulsa squad against the strictly man defense tore it apart.
Yeah.
That means they have wide receivers that can go up against top recruits in the nation and win. And I think that's what you look at them. They had strong performances on the ground, and they have a lot of the same characteristics Notre Dame does, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not to that level, but a lot of those same characteristics, and that's what I think Cincinnati likes to go up against. They want to face those top guys, the guys they know that if you put them under the spotlight, they ain't going to crack.
Yeah.
They want that big-time moment. They want that big-time pressure. They don't care if they win a game by 2 or by 40. They want that moment to prove this is our time to shine.
Like I said, Alec, you talk about wanting it. Like I said, they scheduled 2 teams higher than them in terms of Big Ten team and an independent team, back-to-back weeks. I mean, they had a bye week in between, but they wanted that challenge, and they won both of them. So you got to give them their credit.
So
I mean,
Cincinnati
they've
Give them credit when credit's due, and it is due.
Yeah.
It's overdue. They've been getting crap for last year, now this year. Oh, they're not getting enough. Are they now?
Yeah, I know. And
They
when we get to that point,
They beat the.
they're going to be, if they win out, it's control your destiny time. They will be the first group of 5 team in the college football playoff history. And that's why I said this was such a monumental win for college football and why it could be the biggest of the decade. Because before we see a new playoff format, whether it comes in 25 or 26, we're going to have a group of 5 team in this 4.
They've been close. They've been close, UCF.
And I think it becomes
closest.
impossible with this win if Cincinnati wins out to not include them in that playoff. It doesn't matter whether you have undefeated Big Ten champion, ACC champion, Big 12 champion, SEC champion. I think if all those teams go undefeated, you look at it and goes, oh, well, that should be your 4 teams, right? But if Cincinnati goes undefeated, they have a top 25 win over Notre Dame in South Bend. You have to give it to them.
Yeah.
And Indiana too.
Right.
They were both on the road.
Both on the road, and that SMU game is also on the road.
Yeah.
So
And they're going to get, I mean, that's later in the season. So
that'll be the real test you guys.
But-
Can they hold it down the rest of the
Like I
season?
said,
SMU
Alex,
just got
Not
ranked.
have that slip up.
SMU just got ranked,
Right.
and they're going to keep
And they're
moving.
undefeated.
Yeah, and they're going to keep moving up.
But like you said, Alec, I mean, it's control your own destiny time after this one because don't follow any trap games. I mean, just keep going. Treat every game like just the last 2 games.
And that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow with the Cincinnati Temple game. Enter conference play and don't slip up.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
That's
Fickle
where
knows
teams fall.
that. Fickle knows that. I mean, he's going to come in here and he's going to lead this team along, and I hope they can run the tables.
Yeah, but I'm sure he knows that. And coaches know that going in. Any
Right.
coach knows that going in, but it's just a matter of taking care of business.
Right.
Absolutely.
Speaking of a team that took care of business, 42-23 win for the Arizona State Sun Devils over the UCLA Bruins. DTR in the game. He was himself. He went 21-32, 235 yards and a touchdown. He also led the team in rushing with 96 yards on 19 carries. Zach Charbonnet right behind him, though, with 89 yards on 21 carries. And, you know, it was not the performance UCLA wanted. They need a lot more to compete here. And unfortunately, it's the end of the line for a guy like DTR and this UCLA Bruins squad. Not completely out of the season. They can still make New Year's 6 if they turn things around. But chance of a college football playoff went the way here. And honestly, it's probably time that that the Pac-12 on this season already has been eliminated from college football playoff talks with Cincinnati performing the way they are.
And with the Oregon loss.
And yeah, the Oregon loss is what hurts them the most. Because Oregon was the team that would make it. But I think right now, if you see Arizona State run the table, they're not going to get that even with the conference championship over Oregon. Because Oregon had the big out-of-conference win, right? They beat Ohio State in Columbus. Not even close. They hurt them bad. I mean, it was not a good
I mean,
performance.
the score was closer.
Yeah,
but
that didn't tell the story of the game.
Yeah.
Right. But Pac-12, I think, has eliminated themselves from playoff talks. But they can still get themselves in a New Year's 6 game. And I think it starts right here with Arizona State. I think they need to ride the momentum of Oregon's down week and try and get right up there next to them in the conversation here in the next few weeks. You look ahead for Arizona State, they got the Stanford team that beat Oregon. You need to go in there and crap shoot on Stanford, right? You need to blow them out. Get rid of any talks here of a Stanford upset and really prove, hey, that Stanford team just beat Oregon, we just beat Stanford, and it creates that collision course we're talking about in the Pac-12 championship. That if both teams win out in our own both one-loss teams, then you can maybe talk about, you know, a potential to get in the playoff, but it's close. I mean, they need the top teams ahead of them to lose.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about, the Stanford upset. I mean, they had a big win last week against Oregon, but it's hard to do that 2 straight weeks and upset a team.
Right.
So we'll see if Arizona State comes prepared, which they should be. They should know that coming in. That's it's hard to do that, and they just came off a big win, so let's take advantage of it.
Yeah. All right, well, how about here these last 8 minutes or so? We get into the wild card talk here for the MLB.
Oh, yes.
We saw last night Yankees versus the Red Sox, the ultimate rivalry in the
it's
wild card.
It's the best rival.
No.
It's one of them.
It's one of them.
Baseball. In baseball.
In baseball, yeah.
That's what I meant.
Okay.
In baseball. In baseball.
You know, I'm just saying. But yeah, I mean, that game, Red Sox, I think, blew it away. I mean, they did exactly what they needed to. And if you were watching that call later in the broadcast with the Alec Rodriguez breakdown to the two teams, the Yankee guy at heart, and he played for that squad forever. And he even said that this Yankees team is not a team to win down the stretch. This one-and-done type squad, going to the plate and you hit a home run, is not winning you championships.
No.
He says, he was saying in the broadcast, the Red Sox are designed to win championships. You look at that roster, they have so many guys that could do so many different things that they aren't just doing one thing to win a game, and they have such strong pitching in the front and in the depth.
You look at this Yankees schedule, Mike. You have Giancarlo Stanton. You have Judge. They just picked up Joey Gallo.
Rizzo.
What do you think of when you hear those guys' names? Home runs.
And you live and die by the long ball. I mean, that's why they were like this past year, because
you need guys that can hit singles and doubles.
I mean, that's what the Red Sox had. That's why they took that game.
Well.
It's obvious they went out and got Rizzo and Gallo because they were lacking so badly in left-handed hitting all year. Yeah. And it didn't seem to be
I like
enough.
the Rizzo pickup, though.
I do.
I think that looks well for them going forward.
Yeah.
But I think this just shows something else with the salary cap, right? In the fact that there is none. And that New York has this basically unlimited budget to spend on stuff, and they still can't get it done. And you have a team out here in the NL side with like the Brewers and the Braves, and even over here in the AL with Chicago, the White Sox, None of those squads nearly have anywhere close to that same budget as New York, even Tampa. Right? Who's the number one team, and they are producing championship caliber teams that are coming playoff time that we're in now are looking to actually contend here with a different style of play. New York is going with this huge spotlight showcase of home runs and the Bronx Bombers and all this crazy
They're exciting,
stuff.
but they're not going to
Well,
win.
they're exciting. They're trying to bring excitement to the crowd with the home run because they know that's what puts butts in seats. So does winning, so does championships.
But you talk about with the Yankees having unlimited resources. I mean, you even heard Alex Rodriguez talk about this on the broadcast. Not every team can do what the Rays do. You can try, and it might work for some teams. I mean, you look at Boston; they're not star-studded like they usually are. Think guys like Hunter Renfroe. He was a reject from the Padres. Not a reject, but
he also made a great tackle in the NFL this past
year. I know. Yeah. My dad was going off like, "Hey, that's a guy from the Raiders."
I didn't realize Hunter Renfroe was on the Red Sox.
Hunter Renfroe was
that popped up
baseball
on the
before we knew about the football one.
Yeah.
But you talk about the Yankees. I mean, you go out and spend money like they always do for a guy like Garrett Cole. The wild card haunts him like it always does.
Yeah.
I mean, you give this guy millions of dollars and he only makes it 3 innings in a wild card game. That's not what you want.
I don't think they should have went with him to start. I think they should have brought what was his name? He came in later in the game.
I mean, their offense lacked. I mean, you could even now going into the offseason, I mean, did they make a change of Brian Cashman as a GM? Did they get rid of Aaron Boone, which they probably should? Do you make a change of shortstop with Gleyber Torres? I mean, this is a historic free agency for shortstops this year. You've got guys like Baez and Trey Turner and some other guys. I mean, we'll see if they address that. They got some questions going into the offseason. They had questions all year if they make changes.
This question, as we shift out of the wild cards to talk for just a second.
Go ahead.
Who's the best non-playoff team going into next year? Who wasn't a playoff team this year? Who's the best team that has a chance to make it?
Toronto.
Toronto? What about Seattle?
Seattle, Oakland?
But Seattle might lose Kyle Seager, though. That's a big loss.
But they still have Mitch Haniger.
Oh, no. He's in Tampa Bay.
Oh, yeah, that's right. My bad.
No, I don't know. I don't remember. I get some guys mixed up. But, yeah, you got to say Toronto.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to put that out there. Like, what about Padres?
They just fired the manager. They
Mitch Haniger is Seattle. I was right.
Oh, were you right? I was thinking of somebody else. My bad.
Mitch Haniger was awesome.
Yeah, you could say there's a lot of teams you could say.
Yeah.
Probably more so in the American League than National League. So National League kind of weak.
The Guardians. Hey, listen. I gotta talk about a split second because we didn't get to talk too much Indians this year. Our whole team was hurt. No Naylor.
I think it was a good season. The fact that they were all out,
and they almost finished at 500, 80 and 82. I am not complaining.
Since we're doing recaps here, like I showed you guys.
Oh God, are you gonna talk about the Pirates?
No, I'm just saying.
Go ahead here quickly. Yeah. I want to get to this last wild card game tonight.
Quickly, because I wrote an article and I showed it to you guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
You can even say with the Indians. I mean, they had injuries, so it's probably a wash. Pittsburgh lost 100 games, but I don't care about that. It's a rebuild. I mean, Pittsburgh sport media sucks because they're also negative. You see what the Steelers do, Matt.
Yeah.
They're always negative.
Yeah.
It's never about win. It wasn't about wins this year, and it wasn't for 1 second. So 100 games, 99. You lose 99. What's the difference if you lose 99 or 100? They still stink.
Yeah. Okay, so how about tonight's last wild card game? St. Louis Dodgers. And I saw something the other day. I don't know if it was sent to our group chat or not, but if both the Dodgers and the Yankees lose in the wild card, yeah, you sent it, that it will probably mean the end of the one game series for the wild card. Do you guys think that's true?
Absolutely.
If both teams lose?
By the end of the
I think it will at least come to conversation.
Okay.
At least.
I mean, I feel like it's been in conversation pretty much every year, but this might be where it comes to the forefront of that conversation.
Where Rob Manfred starts at least addressing it.
Worst commissioner in sports?
Definitely, he is.
I mean,
we all know I had my rant back in the day.
I know, Mike, you don't like the Cardinals too much.
I had my rant about him, a year and a half ago?
What did you call it? The cup,
piece of metal.
Piece of metal, yeah.
With both these teams,
he was like one of our first meatheads of the league.
He was.
Yeah,
he was.
He may have been the first, actually.
I think he was.
What's your award? You should know.
He was.
We've had a lot of them, okay?
Yeah,
he's been, I think, he's won it the most.
No, I had it once or twice.
You've had it like 4 or 5 times.
No, I didn't give it to myself that much.
Okay.
All right, who's winning tonight?
Listen, I know
quickly.
Dodgers are dominant. They have everybody you can think of on their team, and there's no reason that they shouldn't.
We said this about the Yankees, though.
Yeah.
Cardinals are hot.
Cardinals are on that hot streak, man.
I'm going Dodgers. I'm being safe because you talked about with your picks you made safe, so I'm going Dodgers. They're at home. They should win.
Well, my picks did say Dodgers, so
yeah.
I picked Dodgers, so I'm going Dodgers.
But
I also picked Dodgers in this game.
You gotta go on the crazy side.
Yeah, I know. I like St. Louis as the underdog here, but I think just With Dodgers, I think they're built similar to the
I
Red
don't
Sox.
know.
They're
You got Scherzer
not
on
just
the
the
mound.
home
Wainwright on
run. They're
the
not just
mound.
a home run hitting team like New York. They are better built like Boston
They're
is,
insanely deep.
and they're insanely deep. They have great pitching, and I think that bodes well coming into the playoffs. You need pitchers, and I think the Dodgers have plenty of that, and they have guys that can hit consistently, and that's why I have the Dodgers here tonight.
We'll see.
You got Wainwright on the
Everybody,
mound. You got Scherzer on the mound.
Good matchup.
Two of the old dogs.
All right, everybody. Well,
True.
that's going to do it here for Hump Day of the Casual Sports Podcast. Mike's going to be on the show the rest of the week with us. So grab your popcorn, stay tuned. Power Hour coming up next on YSNLive.com. I'm Alec. That's Mac.